Well, hey, everyone. Welcome to Live Lessons. It is a crisp, clear night here in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Steve Krentz. I'm glad you're here. I hope you had a good day. If you can, type in where you're from. That's always great great fun for me to see where you guys are from. Owensboro, Kentucky, Nacogdoches, Texas, Vancouver, BC, New York, San Antonio, my hometown, Montana. Anybody from overseas tonight? Wyoming, upstate New York, Maine, good. Fayetteville, North Carolina. Looks like we have a lot of Montreal, Canada. We've got a lot of North American people today. Well, anyway, welcome. Glad you're here. This is going to be a great live lesson. We're going to be talking with my good friend Chip Henderson. Chip, glad you're here.
Great. Thanks for having me.
We're going to be talking about jazz guitar. So to get us, and we're going to be giving away some stuff along the way. So if you want to be a part of the giveaways, and we're going to be giving away some Benedetto gear as well as a year subscription to Just Jazz Guitar magazine.
There you go.
And that's going to be coming up a little bit later in the broadcast. If you want to be included as part of those winners, then you need to be logged in to the chat at ustream.tv. Some of you may be watching us in different places or different places on the internet. You've got to be logged in at ustream.tv so that we can see that you're logged in and then go from there for winning the stuff. So it's a lot of fun. You guys ready? Let's go ahead and start. We're going to start playing a song called All the Things You Are. I had posted the music for this in our discussion board, and so if you want to see what actually we are looking at, Fabian, maybe you can get that link to them, or you can go to our discussion board thread for this live lesson. You can see it. So it's in the key of A flat, and we're going to get started and hear a little bit of jazz guitar. I'm excited about this lesson.
Yes.
Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Wonderful. I told you it was going to be a good night. That was All the Things You Are, Jerome Kern, Oscar Hammerstein, and I love doing the two guitar thing. It's just so great. You'll notice our guitars are a little bit different, though. I have a normal 6-string guitar, and Chip has a absolutely gorgeous 7-string Benedetto jazz guitar. My guitar sounds like a ukulele next to his. So, Chip, thank you so much for being a part
Thanks
of
for
all this
having
stuff. How'd you get started playing guitar?
Music had always been a part of our house growing up. My dad's record collection, my grandparents. We always listened to Elvis or the Beatles, or granddad's, listening to Perry Como or Frank Sinatra, things like that. So it was always kind of around.
And you grew up in Memphis, right?
I grew up north of Memphis, about an hour north, in a little town called Halls. It has about 3,000 people at best on a good day, and so not really the cultural center of West Tennessee. But
Yes.
but I was interested in music, didn't know what direction or why, or how I was going to be a part of it. But that was always something that was just kind of there. And
Did any of your brothers and sisters play?
no, I'm the oldest, so I was.
You're the oldest.
Yeah. And my mom played piano. I had an uncle that played. I mean, we had musicians in the family, but they were all amateur and just did it for fun. So.
Now, did you take lessons along the way?
I did. I got my guitar when I was 15, so kind of late compared to most people. And there was a guy in town his name was Ted Stutz, and he had gotten out of GIT, I guess earlier that.
And GIT is the Guitar Institute of Technology
Right.
out of
LA.
LA. Yep, very great place.
And he had come home and was trying to get things squared away for himself and tried to make a move, and thought, well, I'll just give guitar lessons for a while. And I was literally the first guy that walked up and rang the doorbell. And I was just obsessed with it. I mean, it was an addiction, a healthy one, But I would take lessons from him like at least once a week, and as many as 3. And
when did you get started learning jazz?
Again, Ted went over, got there early for a lesson, and I remember he was working through something for I think a little theater production show, but it was basically just 2-5-1 and C, and it's just something that simple. Just put my ear right into that, and I said, I need to know all about that. So that kind of got me started, but he steered me more toward classical guitar, taking lessons, doing that. Finding a guy in near where I lived, a guy named Tom Price, who was a great classical guitar teacher who seemed to have had his hand on everybody that kind of came out of that area. Everybody kind of went through him. He convinced me I was not going to be a classical guitarist, which I later thanked him for. So, but yeah, I did lessons. I learned scales, modes, arpeggios, but improvisation was always kind of the center of what we were doing. Even in classical guitar lessons, it was interpretation. All right, you've got the notes, but what are you going to do with them? How are you going to phrase this or embellish this?
What was your first jazz gig?
Let's see. I was in college.
And you went to the University of Memphis?
I was at the University of Memphis, and my first jazz gig was a 3-day convention for food and beverage people. It was pretty bad, but it was 6 hours a day for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I had actual playing 6 hours. Yeah.
Wow.
So hour on, 15 off, so on and so forth. But I had no business being there, and they grabbed me and they said, "How many tunes do you think you know?" I said, I lied. I said 30. They said, "That's enough. Go to do this gig." And
solo?
No, it was with a trio, bass and drums. So.
Oh, but you were the guy.
I was the guy. So, and the bass player on the gig he bailed me out. So every chance he had. So it was great learning experience, trial by fire. Having to do it for 3 days and. Go
learn your repertoire real quick.
Yeah, I went and played the gig for the first day and then had to rush home and and start shedding the tunes.
And you were how old at that time?
Oh, I was in my 20s.
20.
Yeah, I mean, I'd always kind of played around with rock bands and friends, but this was the first gig where they said, "All right, we're actually going to pay you," and it was going to make my apartment rent for the month. And I was like, it was really great.
Fantastic. And you have gone on. Chip has gone on to play great things over the years, and you've played with a lot of the I read in your thing you played with the Memphis Symphony.
I've done the occasional pops orchestra gig with that was the Opus One bunch. They did a jazz theme backing up a singer, so I was part of the rhythm section that did that, and done some things with the Jackson Symphony in Jackson, Tennessee, and the Iris Orchestra out of Memphis.
And you went to the University of Memphis, and then came back around in the Great Circle of Life, and headed up the jazz guitar program out at the University of Memphis.
I was the guy they had there. He had gotten a nice road gig, and so he had left, and I was kind of teaching the non-majors at the time, and they called me and they said, "What are you doing this semester?" And not a whole lot, and here you go. Here's take it and run with it.
And you were teaching at the University of Memphis for what, 8, 9 years?
8 years, 8 and some change, maybe 8.5. Yeah.
Wow, and heading up the jazz guitar department.
Yeah, taking care of recruiting and ensembles and.
And I also read that you have played for a lot of the Broadway national touring companies that have come through Memphis. You have played for, where I have it written down in my notes, you've played for the National Touring Company of Chicago, Monty Python Spam-A-Lot. You've done The Lion King, High School Musical, 9 to 5, and Shrek the Musical. You've done all of those as they've come through Memphis.
At one point I've done Chicago twice. That was actually the first one I did, and then The Lion King was actually in talking to the local musicians and the contractor. That was kind of the one that cemented getting some of the calls, because the story with that one was the guy had the music who had was supposed to be on the show. He had the music for 6 weeks. Did a 6-day rehearsal, played opening night, went to the hospital the next morning with chest pains.
Really?
So they called up and said, what are you doing at 2 o'clock today? Why don't you come down and read sight read The Lion King? And
I'm going to pause you right there. And this is why you learn how to read music. You may never be in that situation, but it's really great.
If you find yourself in that situation, you can at least tread water for a while.
That's right. You're reading charts, you're reading music staff, you're reading other instruments. You were doubling on, what kind of instruments do you double on besides guitar?
Usually on those Broadway shows, you're required to play, obviously all the guitars, some type of utility guitar, usually a Strat or a 335 type, a nylon string, usually a 6-string acoustic, occasionally a 12-string acoustic. But then they throw in, it'd be nice if you could play tenor banjo, or Dixieland banjo, or the various ukuleles, the tenor, the soprano, or the baritone. Mandolin is something that comes up every now and then, and some shows require you, they'll want you to play like like electric sitar, like a guitar that's all set up with the device to give it that swirling sound. So, but between that and having the pedal effects, the trick with that is you're playing, but also your feet you have to be coordinated as well, because you might play something that would be 16th century lute, so you're playing on classical guitar, and by the end of the 4-minute thing, you've moved from that to Vegas floor show, so you got the wah pedal and the Strat. So it's a lot of tap dancing on the pedals and swapping out guitars, but also keeping what tuning am I in.
That's wow. And the guys, I've played shows like that too for various things over the years, and it is a very different skill. You have to read very well. There's constant time and tempo changes. Constant. We're playing, stop. And then you start again, and then, now we're jumping. We're going to skip 2.5 pages later, and everybody comes in at rehearsal letter C, here we go. And a lot of cuts and craziness.
And then you might have you might have the deck, sort of stacked against you, because we have done shows in Memphis where the orchestra, the guys who are part of the touring group might have had a bad experience in the town before they got to us. So we've heard that, like bad, it's sometimes a pressure cooker. You walk in, it's a multi-million-dollar production, it's on the road.
They do it all the time.
It's one rehearsal, and if you don't cut it, you're out, and they expect you to have your stuff look a certain way and no problems, and then obviously then you play, and then once they see that you can handle that, then everything kind of if there is any tension, it kind of goes away. So
now, speaking of guitars, talk a little bit about your playing 7-string guitar. Some of you may not be familiar with how in jazz there is a kind of an offshoot of guitars that added a 7-string, and that started with George Van Epps.
George Van Epps. The production model was made by Gretsch, and so somebody out there might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that it was Gretsch that did the production model, and George Van Epps sort of came up with this, to obviously expand the range and the harmonic palette of the instrument.
Now tell us how the strings are tuned.
Okay, well the top 6 are just a traditional
E, B, G, D,
right,
A, E.
Standard tuning, and then the 7th is a low A, so it's an octave below your 5th string.
So the 5th string and the 7th string are just an octave apart from each other.
Right, and I actually had a chance to. A friend of mine had sent me the pamphlet that came with the original Gretsch guitars. Cause I was kind of interested in why A, because I know some of the rock guys and metal guys tune theirs to B, to get the fifths that they like.
Right, and you'll see that now. I think some of the rock guitars. I want to say Schecter has a 7-string model, and it's more for rock guitar players and kind of heavy metal and things like that. And that they have a 7-string as well, but that string is always tuned to a B. So, but in jazz, we don't tune it to a B. In jazz, if you're going to see a 7-string, it'll be tuned to an A.
Generally, yeah. There are some guys that kind of go between the two tunings, but more often than not, it's going to be an A. So, and Van Epps' explanation was pretty direct. You just don't have to learn another string. If you're familiar with the 5th string, then you should already know the 7th.
So, illustrate for us. Show us a little bit about how you would go about. And I tried to play, by the way. I tried to play Chip's guitar. We had a rehearsal here a week or so ago, and it's doable, but it does feel very different underneath your fingers because you have this added extra string there. And so once you kind of get past that, I can see how it would. You could figure it out, but it's definitely not something you just pick up and go, oh, I get it.
Don't let him fool you. He had it. In 5 minutes, he had it. Yeah. So, the first chord that we played, when we started playing the head to All Things Are, it's an F minor.
F minor 7th.
So most people would play that, or have the 3rd in there. So I'm just going to take the root on the 5th string, and I'm just going to lower it, and it just really opens up that chord. Bass lines are still a little tricky for me. I've only been playing this about a year and a half, so it's still trying to figure out how to get in and around walking comfortably on it, or is still proves to be a challenge some days. So, but you're like if we were playing a 2/5, that would be the F, the 2 chord, and then on those resolution chords, on major especially, you might have to sort of change the fingerings a little bit. So in this case, you don't really see a lot of guys playing doing that. They kind of take the 5th out, and I'm sure y'all have talked about doing that before.
So this is what he's playing there is an E flat major 7th, kind of an inside 4 strings voicing, E flat up here at the 5th position, E flat G, D, and a G, and then he's taking his 2nd finger on that E flat and going to the 7th string, which I don't have, and you get that extra octave down there. So you end up with a chord that's got a range of an octave and a half on it, or something like that.
It really adds, that first interval is usually a 10th of some description, major or minor. So, which is just a major or minor 3rd plus an octave. So it sounds more piano-like, just in the intervallic structure. But it really, I don't know. I've fallen in love with this thing.
I play a few chords with it. I'm just amazed with it. It makes a normal sounding guitar have seems like your range is like this, but when you add that 7th string on it, just suddenly gives so much bottom end to it. Play a little bit of the different chords and things.
Just. And this is just keeping everything on the 5th string. back on the 7th string. And then you can walk with it, obviously. So
wow.
it's addicting. I opened the case and started playing it, and that was a turning point for me.
Yeah.
And
so much of jazz guitar and just getting the harmony in your ear, for me, just came by listening. I distinctly remember the first time I heard jazz, and I thought, what is that? What is that music? And then you just go and research these great players that play jazz guitar. Joe Pass, we're going to be referring to a little bit later. If you're not familiar with who Joe Pass is, I put up a link on our discussion board. Fabian, I think you have that as well, of just some great. He is the master with that sort of stuff. Martin Taylor is another one that is
Bucky Pizzarelli.
Bucky Pizzarelli. Who, as far as 7-string guitar players, I know Bucky Pizzarelli plays 7-string.
Yeah, he's actually probably the guy that is responsible for
He's
most
always the one
people.
that I know of that plays it.
Right. He's usually the one that we all blame for playing it anyway, because he turned me on to it, and then you start talking to other guys who play 7-string. They're like, "Oh yeah, Bucky." He talked to me one day and it made sense. So he's kind of the guy that has been, the one that's really promoted this instrument.
Had a question come in. What is the width of the neck compared to a 6-string guitar? Is it more like a classical guitar? Is it a classical guitar neck is a 2-inch width, if I remember right?
This I don't know what the measurement is, but it feels like a classical guitar neck. It is wider, but obviously it's to make up for this low A, coming on. It's also spaced out a little more, to kind of play with your fingers. It's not like
so cramped in.
Right.
It's to me, just looking at it, guys and gals, it looks a little bit larger than a classical guitar neck, just by, 1/8 of an inch or something like that. Because the strings are a good width apart. They're not as, in fact, I think they're probably either what mine are, if not a little bit more. I mean, it's got a good width between the strings. You'd think it would feel awkward. It does feel awkward. I tell you where it felt awkward was to this hand. When I'm trying to get my bearing on the strings as I was playing it with my picking hand, that's where it was awkward. This hand, I kind of understood what was happening and needed to happen over here. But what freaked me out was the plucking end of the.
Yeah, and that was one of my problems with it was, and again, Bucky was sitting right there and he goes, don't look at it, and it'll feel like a regular guitar, and to me it does, except I have the added low end. I don't really grip the neck that way, so I've always kind of played with a classical,
right.
Left hand style. So I don't really notice that it's wide until I worked my way down. But it took about 20 minutes of playing it to understand what was going on, and again we had brought Bucky in for like 4 days over at Memphis to do an artist series concert, and just every free chance he was here, take the guitar, just let me play mine during the workshop. No, play this one, and I mean, once you saw him play it, everything made sense, and any preconceived notion that I had that it was sort of a novelty thing, and it went right out the window. I mean, it was obvious why you wanted to play that. So,
and I imagine it takes a few minutes when jumping back to a 6-string guitar again, to get mentally back in that space again.
Yeah, I've had to do that before, and all of a sudden, just where's that note? It's not there.
Yeah.
But it's pretty quick to go back and forth. If you do it enough. I mean, if you know you're going to play a 6 and a 7, I usually have them both out, and we'll just kind of go back and forth between the two, and your hand kind of remembers what's going on. So.
As we were playing there at the top, we just did a regular jazz standard there, but we're playing with 2 guitars. This is something that I've done a lot. I kind of grew up playing little duets and things at jazz guitar and violin, or jazz guitar and tenor, or jazz guitar and whatever else you may be doing. So playing with two guitars is a very comfortable format for me. But a couple things you need to keep in mind is not to play in each other's musical space.
No.
So you kind of need to work out amongst yourselves who's doing what at any point in time, so that you're not stepping on each other.
Right, and I do some gigs here in town with 2 7-string players, so myself and one of 2 other guys, and it takes a song or two to kind of find your way with them,
Find your groove with it.
because both guys are phenomenal players, but they play differently, and so you try to find the little cracks to kind of play in. What's tricky is playing with a bass player, and all of a sudden you're laying into these chords, and the bass player's just frowning because you're playing his notes.
One of the things you have to do if you're playing solo stuff is you have to play the bass line. Like on that first song we were doing, one of the chord changes was F minor 7 to let's say a B flat to an E flat. Well, instead of just going, well, first of all, I'd add the 7th because we're playing jazz, and then I'd do B flat, maybe a B flat 11th or a B flat 13th maybe. You're always just adding stuff. Instead of an E flat major, I'd never play an E flat major. I'd play an E flat major 7th at least, and maybe a 9th or something else. Anyway, so getting in between these chords, an F minor 7th to some sort of a B flat to some sort of an E flat, you have to add a bass line when you're doing solo stuff or small things. So one way to practice that is if we're just doing like the F minor, I'm going to do 4 on the F, then B flat. So I'm playing the chord that I'm keeping with my fleshy part of my thumb, playing the bass line. Trying to imitate the sound of an upright bass. Now the next level is to walk. You hear about walking bass lines. Is to walk from this F up to the B flat, because you need to hit the F at the right time, the B flat at the right time, the E flat at the right time. That's the only rules. How you get to them is your own discretion, really.
Right.
One of the ways I could do it is walk up to it. Maybe throw in a C7. And it's kind of a finger twister to figure out how I can keep the chord and still get as many bass notes as I can out of the thing. How do you approach chord bass lines?
Usually, but just like the way you
just grab what you can.
Right.
I know for me, there's no secret. You just kind of grab what's available.
Because if you start thinking, then you kind of everything's kind of gone past you. But practicing that, and we talked about this earlier, was back to the 2-5-1 and C. Where I would do what you said. I would 3, 4, 1, 2. Play that and just make sure that everything came in on the on beat 1 more or less, and then started. Oh, sorry. So just trying to think of what a bass player would play, and we had a great teacher over at Memphis. It was a bass teacher. His name was Tim Goodwin, and I just sat down with him one day and said, "All right, just show me how you do this. What's the concept?" He's like, "It was just really a small amount of things you could do that you could play variations on, just to get started, and that's kind of what everything's based on. Just you could get to it by half step above your target note. So in this case, the G would be the target note. So D is your starting point, G is your target, C is your target. So and we could get to things walking up, approaching them by half step above, half step below. But yeah, just trying to keep 2 or 3 things straight, and not overcomplicating it.
One of the exercises you were doing earlier was like if we're on that D minor 7th to the G7, Like I started it, just doing the bass line. But you could walk in between them. But you can also, like you were doing, playing them straight and then offsetting.
Right, you could.
Hear how the chords are on the beat. So you got the bass line going, but the chords are on the beat. But you can also offset those chords.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, so that gives it more of a swing feel.
Let me get a couple of these questions here that we're getting backed up on. John, scoot that back up there so I can see what these earlier questions were. L Guitarist saying, Chip, if you play a C major 7th in the 3rd position, A to E strings, and then play the 3rd fret on the 7th string, 3rd fret on the 7th string, the note would be a C, and you need not play the 6th string at all.
6th or the 5th.
6th or the 5th, yeah. So in that form...
Yeah, the basic idea was strings 4, 3, 2. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think math. Is going to, cover your 7th and 3rds, and then the C would be in the bass on the 7th.
Right.
And if you played the 9th, and that works for. That's sort of the rule of thumb for all those chords.
The bass tones, if you get them too close together, it just starts sounding muddy. So that's why, like upper tones, you can have close together and it sounds cool. But as you get lower, just with how the frequencies work, you get 2 bass notes real close to each other. It just gets
if we did it that way, which that sounds, but it's still a little. That still sounds.
See how it gets a little rumbly down there at the bottom? Very hip, though. That guitar sounds so great. L Guitarist, do you follow a mode scale for the walking bass line over chords?
Not if it's functional harmony. If it's functional harmony, then I think the key.
Functionally meaning you're in the key.
Right.
If I'm doing a 2, 5, 1 in C and I'm going from the D to the G, I'm hopping on scale tones.
Right. I mean, this is functional. But if we were playing, just sort of almost random like chords that were tied together through a melody or a bass line, then I would look and see, what mode or parent key or what was happening there, and sort of play in and around that.
I've got a question for you. That guitar is so gorgeous. I must admit, I am not a guy who usually covets other men's guitars, but I did think twice about this one. This is made by Benedetto. This is the very famed, legendary Benedetto guitars. You don't see very many of them, and because every one of them I have heard is gorgeous, and
no one really gets rid of them.
And no one ever gets rid of them. Benedetto guitars. Thank you, Fabian, for putting up that link. Talk about that guitar.
This is their Bravo 7, so it's part of their professional series, which they sort of market toward the working professional musician, teacher. The price point is considerably lower than the boutique Manhattans, Fratellos, Cremonas.
But I mean, still, you're looking at $4,000 or $5,000 for this?
Yeah, thereabouts. But it's worth it. I mean, it's.
It gets the sound. I must admit, every one of them that's the sound. That's that jazz guitar.
Yeah,
sound.
This is my second one. I bought a 6-string off of them. This is the second one, and this is the one I play all the time. I love it, but it doesn't matter which one you pick up. If you pick up one of their higher-end Manhattans, or like this model, or one of their solid bodies, it feels the same. The necks, the way it's set up, the way your hand kind of goes across them. To me, it's what it's supposed to feel like.
One of the things I noticed on that guitar, it was very light, just in weight.
Which you usually don't get out of a laminate. This is a laminate, so this isn't even like a carved.
I mean, it weighs probably significantly lighter than this one, and it just has to do with, I guess, how they set it up in the woods. But they all just sound amazing, and I couldn't help but notice on your tailpiece there it has.
Yeah, they kind of did that for me.
Henderson. You know you're cool when your tailpiece has your name on it.
You know, Bob's a nice guy, and he and Cindy Benedetto, I mean, they're great people, and Howard Paul, the CEO, and just everybody who's associated with them. Bill Neal with the Benedetto gear page. I mean, they're all great folks to work with, and just really happy to be a part of those guys.
Chip is an official Benedetto artist, and wow, I love it.
And I don't even have one of those.
All right, we're going to give away some Benedetto gear, some Benedetto swag that our good friends over at Benedetto have sent over. Bill from that sent over some great stuff. So we're going to give away a Benedetto. I wanted them to send over a guitar, but they don't do that. I guess I can't blame them. So instead of a guitar, I got a hat. So anyway, we're going to give away the hat. Somebody's about to win this Benedetto baseball hat. The winner of this is Jeff in AZ. Jeff in AZ, I assume that's Arizona. Jeff in Arizona, you have just won yourself a Benedetto hat. What you need to do at this moment is email us at service@legacylearningsystems.com and give us your mailing address and phone number and whatnot, and we'll get this out to you, and then you'll be the first one on your block to have a Benedetto hat.
One of the guys said that you actually did get the guitar, you just kept it.
Oh, sorry. I would have, maybe I might swipe Chip's guitar as he's walking out the door. Great. Okay. Before we go into some other things, Chip, can you, while we're talking about that guitar, can you play us something? What amp are you using, by the way?
I'm using a Claris 2R. It's made by Acoustic Image.
Acoustic Image.
And the cabinet I'm playing through today is it's an Ampeg Portabass cabinet. It weighs like 10 pounds.
It was a small little thing. We'll try and get a picture of it up after the lesson for that.
The magnet in it, I'm not good with the technical stuff, but the magnet is a certain type it weighs less than your standard, guitar speaker magnet. So it's really light. I mean, I pick it up and I forget how light it is.
It sounds amazing. All right, can you play us a little bit of something? Just kind of show off that instrument a little bit. What are you going to play for us?
Ellington's Prelude to a Kiss.
Prelude to a
Kiss.
Kiss.
Try to incorporate the seventh, but not wear it out.
absolutely beautiful. Wow. Thank you, Chip. Let's talk about some resources. This is Jazz Guitar Month here at Learn and Master Guitar. And so we put up our October resources. And I kind of, since Chip was going to be here, I wanted to kind of focus on some jazz guitar resources. Chip has turned me on to a couple of great things. Let me just kind of go through them real quick. We're offering this month a jazz guitar learning pack. We've done some jazz learning before, and we went with songs, and I told you about the real book, and many of you got that, and I hope it's been helpful to you. This one I wanted to get more into the playing end of things. So we picked 3 different resources. First of which is a book by Jack Grassel, which I was not familiar with, but Chip has turned me on to it. It's an older book. It's put out a long time ago. It's called Guitar Seeds. You can kind of tell. It kind of has a little bit of a vintage look to it. This book is used in all kinds of guitar schools, and many players, from regular guys to professional players, kind of refer back to this book as the book that kind of opened their eyes to really breaking out of position playing.
Yeah, and we had discussed this earlier, but it kind of hits on all topics and just gives you enough information, at least it did for me, to give you something to kind of run with and have your own discoveries, without mapping everything out, play it this way, do it, it left the door open for you to kind of find your own voice, find your own way to do things. The big thing out of that for me was the chord voicings and the basic substitution ideas and how to expand a basic 7th chord to 9ths and what other extensions without getting yourself into a pretzel, playing them. But real cut and dry, great picking exercises, great things in there, at least for me, that kind of help map out the fingerboard, but the big thing for me was the explanation of harmony and real succinct terms. And
great resource, not for the faint of heart. There are some books that you get that they really, you get them and you kind of go through them and you go, okay, I get a few good ideas. And there's other books that you get and you go through them and you get about a page and a half into it and you go, wow, that will take me about a year to digest what just happened there and the implications of how it works in my guitar playing. So this is one of those books. Great resource. The second book of our 3 is a book called Swing and Big Band Guitar by Charlton Johnson.
Yes.
Charlton Johnson, who was the guitar player after Freddie Green in the great legendary Count Basie band. And you actually studied with Charlton Johnson.
He's from Memphis, and he was my guitar teacher when I was in school. He was at the end of while I was at school, my senior year through grad school, and we were sort of the guinea pigs for that book.
Jazz guitar voicings. People are always asking about the chords and things like this. That's all this thing is just chords and explanations of why these chord voicings work and how they work. Comes with a CD. This is a great resource for just learning how jazz guitar moves and how jazz guitar comping moves from really the guy and the handful of guys that actually did it. So, great resource.
And that focuses mainly on big band playing. So, but it can easily be adapted to gypsy, other swing styles. But it's more like it's big band guitar, but it's also commonly referred to as 4 to the bar. So, all this stuff he had researched while he was in the band, and just again, like Jack's book, common sense, how to reduce, an array of chords to its simplest component, or how to embellish a simple chart to kind of incorporate moving bass lines and things like that. But he is the chord master.
The chord master. The other thing, which I'm afraid I don't have because it's still on its way to us, I wanted to throw in a DVD of I've been listening to a lot of Joe Pass lately, arguably one of the greatest jazz fingerstyle guitarists that has ever walked the planet. And he died, probably 10,
No, he died in 90, in the early 90s, 91 to 93.
I have a link there, Fabian, maybe you could put that up, of the great Joe Pass playing All the Things You Are, the song that we've been talking about. Anyway, this is his, one of the DVD that I include in the Jazz Learning Pack is him explaining how he moves between, it's called Jazz Lines, and it's how he is moving in between different chord changes. I can't think of a better person to have in front of you and to be sitting and have him saying, this is what I'm thinking about when I'm going between this chord and this chord. This is like the little nuggets of gold from a guy who is the guy that is doing it. So I thought that was a great DVD to include. So all three of those resources for under $50. It's $49.99. The guys put a sale on it. So anyway, if you're interested in jazz guitar, these resources will go a long way to get you where you want to go with all of that. All right, there's that. One of the other things that we're going to give away is the Just Jazz Guitar magazine, of which you have written for many times.
Yeah, and I have done arrangements for them, like solo guitar arrangements. I've done transcriptions over the handful of years that I've worked with them. Right now, I'm happy doing CD reviews, book reviews, things like that. But that magazine's great. It's a quarterly magazine, and it sort of spans the range of jazz guitar enthusiasts, from beginners to professionals, and it's been a great resource for me just to maybe get exposed to some players that I didn't know, or to see a past lesson from another guitarist, or have an in-depth interview with somebody out of New York that you might not get to see, or LA, or some other, Chicago, that you might not get a chance to see very often. But also, it's just full of solo guitar arrangements and great articles, covering theory and basic improv ideas that is suitable, again, from beginners to seasoned pros.
That's what I liked about it. Some of these magazines you pick up, these guitar magazines, it's just all ads for strings and things like that, and if you just squeezed it all out on the floor, it would just ooze out marketing, and there would only be about 3 pages of actual content in the whole magazine. This thing is different. You're getting actual songs written out that you can practice. The MP3s, you can go to their website and download the MP3s and listen to how the song is. So if you like arrangement like Prelude to a Kiss or something like that, a song like that might be on there. It's a great resource. Just Jazz Guitar Magazine. Fabian, you've got the link there for it if anyone is interested. But somebody is going to win a year subscription to it right now. The winner of a year subscription to Just Jazz Guitar Magazine is Firebird Venom. Wow. Firebird Venom, you just won a year subscription to Just Jazz Guitar Magazine. Email, but you haven't done anything until you email us at service@legacylearningsystems.com, and we will give us your mailing address. We'll get that to the good folks over at Just Jazz Guitar, and they will mail you out your subscription. And she told me today that it starts out for the new issue in November. So in just a couple weeks, you will get your first issue. So it's a great resource. Firebird Venom, congratulations on that. All right. We're going to take a break here for just about a minute and a half to switch some things around, and then we're going to answer your questions and play a little bit more, and we'll be out of here. Hope you guys are doing well. Hang on with us for about another 90 seconds.
Furthering your education, Legacy Learning Systems offers a unique resource to all students, the Learn and Master online community. Here you can communicate with fellow students and course instructors and immerse yourself into an interactive community where knowledge, fun facts, and experiences are shared. Signing up is easy. Take your learning to the next level. The Learn and Master online community, your place for serious instruction.
Hey everybody, Steve Krenz here, and I'm in the studio just about to finish up a brand new guitar course. That's right, Learn and Master Spotlight Fingerstyle Guitar is nearly complete, and I couldn't be more pleased with how it's turning out. Imagine sitting down with just you and your guitar and playing a solo fingerstyle arrangement of one of your favorite songs. Now you'll have the tools to do just that, and that's why I created this course.
So be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter because we'll be making the release date announcement soon.
All right, we're back. Sorry about we're going a little long-winded today, so we're going to try and speed it up here a little bit. Answer a couple of questions really quick. JFFJ Flick, how do you set up your amp for the jazz sound? Well, here's what I do, and then Chip, you can think about that as well. Certain amps are more geared for jazz just by their very nature. I've got my little Polytone amp back here. It's got I believe a 14-inch or 12-inch speaker on it, and that thing was made for jazz. So that's what I'm running through. What do? Well, I usually crank up the bass a little bit, warm that up, have a little bit of mids, and then I dial in or back the treble to taste of how it seems to be in the room. And on this guitar, I roll back the tone to about 7, just to kind of roll the edge off the sound. And I use a pick that is not, a thin little pick. I use a little bit of a thicker pick. Today I'm using a Jim Dunlop Jazz 3 pick. So that's what I do to kind of get a jazz sound, as well as your instrument. If I was playing a Flying V, I probably wouldn't be able to get a pretty good jazz sound. And you would be hard-pressed to play Eruption by Van Halen on that guitar.
I don't know. This plays pretty easy.
What about you? What about getting a jazz
usually,
sound?
Heavy gauge strings were the first thing you could
Heavier
do.
gauge strings.
These are Diodario 12 round wounds. Usually I play flat wounds, but lately I've been enjoying the sound of the round wounds, giving it a little more acoustic, bark. The 7th string is on, regardless if I play flat wounds or rounds or half rounds or whatever Diodario makes that I decide to put on that day. The bass strings are always round wounds.
And so you have to buy that bass string
It's
separately.
usually separate. I mean, some companies will put together, package something together, but I just kind of like having a little more choice in what I want, because some days I might want it to be a little heavier.
Yeah.
Other days lighter. But the heavy gauge strings first, and then basically what Steve said about the amp, just getting that dialed into your taste. I mean, usually you would like to have somebody that that you're listening to that you want to kind of emulate. And for me, it was Jim Hall. That was like the first guy, and Wes Montgomery, that I just went, oh, that's what I want to sound like. And so I did the same thing. I had the Polytone for a long time, and just tried to use those guys as a model. As far as picks go, I use mandolin picks, and these are Golden Gate picks, and I think they're like 2.0s.
And they have no sharp edges on them. They're just all rounded edges. I don't know if that is
Same thing.
Same thing. And these are great. You can immediately get a jazz sound with one of these picks. One of the questions there, HB Legacy is saying, so your pick can make a difference in the sound. Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I was trying to see if I even have a thin pick.
I got one right here that, but even just going between like a standard, Fender medium and this is night and day.
Can you play a little bit with both, or you're probably going to get a jazz sound on that animal anyway,
no
matter what you do. That's the mandolin pick.
Mandolin pick, and this is, and I even use the rounded edge on these. Just it's a little thinner, but it's good for doing the rhythm guitar stuff where it snaps against the string. It doesn't push them too hard. So.
Yep. All right. How is it if you're a jazz guitarist and you want to learn? What is some of the things you should do as a person who trains jazz guitarists every day?
Lots of listening, and kind of acquainting yourself with the history of it. A lot of guys come out and they say, well, whoever the first person is they listen to, that's where they kind of pick up on things, and they don't really see anything that happened before that. That's kind of the way I came to it backwards. I was, again, studying with these guys, and we were learning, rock songs and whatnot, and we talked about this, where the magazines during the late 80s were actually kind of geared toward musician type concepts, improv and transcribing. So you would read about John McLaughlin or Al Di Meola. You would read about those guys, and you'd start, well, who they all play with? Well, and you end up at Miles Davis at some point, 6 Degrees of Separation. So after I kind of realized that, I got way off into the history part of it, and where did all these guys come from? Who influenced them? But that all being said, the listening aspect of it is huge. Even if it's just settling in on one person, if you know that player X is who you like, you should probably, who were they listening to? Because they were obviously copying from somebody to come up with that sound. We brought up Joe Pass. I mean, all those things that he was doing on the Virtuoso records, I mean, it's all Art Tatum stuff. That he just...
Art Tatum, piano player.
Piano player, right.
Piano player.
So a lot of listening, transcribing, whether it be getting it from books, like the solo transcription books, or going out and, actually transcribing the records, CDs, or whatever it is, format you have, and just pen to paper, writing the idea down in your own way and kind of formulating your own ideas about what's happening at that point. Will get you a lot further, a lot faster, I think, than kind of just solely going through a method book. But I mean, that all being said, it's you need both. You need somebody kind of guiding you, and then going off on your own and kind of listening.
Some of the great guitarists to listen to, of course, Joe Pass. We mentioned Martin Taylor, Jim Hall. Way back in the day, Charlie Christian.
Yeah.
It was kind of the beginning of electric jazz guitar.
Yeah. He popularized it with his...
George Van Epps, George Barnes.
I mean, you can go back before that. I mean, we can go to Carl Crest, Dick McDonough, the acoustic, on the acoustic side. We can go to Eddie Lang, and then you got the first guy that everybody kind of points a finger at, which is this guy named Nick Lucas. He was one of the first guys to record what we consider today a jazz guitar piece in 1922, and that really kind of ushered in the guitar as not being a novelty instrument, in jazz music or popular music at the time.
As far as like jazz bass lines, let me also mention this. If you're interested in jazz bass lines, study Martin Taylor, because he's brilliant at it. Particularly pick up a project. I've got a project of his called Double Standards, and it's basically him playing with himself. It is ridiculous.
It is.
The quality of sound that he's getting, and the amount of musical information spitting at you from two guitars. Another guy to check out is Tuck Andrus from Tuck and Patty. Not quite, swing like this stuff is, but it's just brilliant with moving those bass lines around as he's playing solo guitar. Anyway, so a couple of thoughts from that. Stealth 1234567 from Sheffield, UK, asked me a question last week that I didn't get to. Says, I like the look and feel, not slip out of jazz here for just a second, talk about some other guitar stuff. I like the look and feel of Fender Electrics, but I want my electric to be versatile. Rather than buying more than one guitar, I was thinking of changing the pickups on a Strat, which has 3 pickups, from SSS, which is single, 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 to HSH, which is humbucker, and then the single, and then the humbucker at the back, to get better jazz and rock tones. Will this work? Yes. Strats are great. They can get their palette of sounds. If you combine them with some humbuckers, then you can kind of get the humbucker on the neck side of things is going to get you that jazz, warm, full, B.B. King-ish kind of sound. The humbucker at the closer to the bridge, that's going to get you a more electric lead sort of a sound as well. So yeah, it would make your instrument a lot more versatile, and you would still be able to for the most part, get that single coil sound because you have the single coil in the middle.
Yeah, and that's the way I have my utility Strat set up for these pit shows is that way.
Sleeping Angel Maria from New York says, what is the best approach for learning real book chords? A lot of these chord forms that we're using out here are right out of the real book. I know that they are mostly seventh chords, which they are, which she says she hasn't gotten into. But is it okay to look each one up or play it in a song? Or should I be trying to figure it out at this point? Okay. I'd say when you come across a chord that you need to know in a song, look it up, figure out what that chord is. But yes, the application in a song is the way to go. Rather than, okay, today we're going to learn 17 chords. You can learn all the forms and then forget them because you don't have a way to apply them. One of my guitar teachers said one time, if you have skills but no way to apply them, then it's useless for you and you'll never use it. So if you're learning that ever so elusive Mixolydian Hungarian major minor scale all the way up the neck, that's fantastic, but unless you can put it into a song, it's going to be useless to you. So application is always the best way. Get a song. If there's a couple chords in it that you don't know, we're going to play a song here in a second, Lullaby of Birdland. That's got a few odd forms in it. D minor 7 flat 5. Well, how can it, and I would go and I would figure out what kind of different ways I can play that chord. And so you may have to go to a resource online or a book or something to figure out a couple ways to play that chord. But when you can immediately put it into a piece of music, then you've got it. Then you've really learned it. All right, that's enough about that. I want to give away one more thing, and then we're going to play. The good folks at Benedetto sent us over a DVD. This is the Cafe Benedetto DVD. What this is a lot of these great legendary players. Yeah. Today's legendary players: Frank Vignola, Jimmy Bruno, Jack Wilkins, Howard Alden. Great players. This was a concert that they did several years back, and all on Benedetto guitars. Great DVD filled with jazz guitar stuff. The winner of this is, Matonajin, Matonanjin. Matonanjin. I don't know. Matonajin. I don't know.
You're brave.
Anyway, you just won that, but you haven't won anything unless you email us. So there you go. Thank you, Benedetto, for sending all of this great gear. Guys, definitely check out Benedetto and drool over their guitars a little bit. And Christmas is coming. That's all I have to say. Christmas is coming. You can drop that, little hint to your wife, perhaps. Here's what I want for Christmas. Give her the number on the page, or the little web address. It wouldn't mean a thing to my wife.
Nor mine.
There you go. All right, some closing announcements, and then we're going to get out of here. Our October newsletter came out today, so if you're on our newsletter list, you received that. I had a tip in there about using open strings to create some creative little tricks that you can do with open strings. Not going to work on my jazz guitar, but combining pull-offs and things. Stuff like that. So that tip is in our newsletter. We also have our Student of the Month, Ken from Jacksonville, Florida. Did y'all like Ken? He played with us last week on Live Lesson and conquered his fears and came with us. We, even actually, as we're filming this now, we have some more of our Live Lesson learners in the studio. Joe and his wonderful wife are visiting here. So again, if you're ever in Nashville, come by and check us out. We'd love to get to meet you. Anyway, so there's lots of good things in the newsletter. Also, we have our next live lesson is going to be October 16th, next week, and I'm going to be talking along, keeping in our jazz theme about embellishing chord progression. So instead of playing a D minor, I can play a D minor 9th, and I can play a D minor 11th, and I can do all different forms and what the rules are for all that sort of stuff. We also put up a bunch of good lessons over at Gibson Skills House. I've got some up there regarding the Nashville number system. We've got a couple new lessons over there for that. Also put up a new style lesson that actually you guys saw first, because I did it with you guys first. We did a newsletter a couple months ago, but we did it at Gibson Skills House on getting that U2 edge sound with using delay to get that sound. Also a couple of songs that some of the other instructors have put up, Lonely is the Night by Billy Squier and Champagne Supernova by Oasis, which that is the middle. If you're looking at us on Ustream, that is the middle button. If you click that, that'll take you to Gibson Skills House, and we have probably 100 or more lessons over at Gibson Skills House for you to take advantage of. All right, let's play. Have I made all of my announcements that I need to? I think I have. We're going to play Lullaby of Birdland. I want to thank, as we're getting that ready, the music to that is in our on our discussion board. It's in the key of A flat, F minor, parallel minor, remember, or relative minor. Remember how we talked about that in the course, and you thought it would never be useful? Well, here you go. This song flips in and out of F minor and A flat major tonality all the time. And anyway, the music's in that. I wanted to thank our great sponsors, Legacy Learning Systems, of course, Benedetto Guitars. Check them out, Just Jazz Guitar, and check out our October resources as well. Thanks for being a part of it. We're going to close out with Lullaby of Birdland. And I think we had an elaborate intro that we had worked out with that, if I remember right. I don't know if I quite remember it.
This.
All right, let's play it. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Take one, Chip. There you go. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.